Hi, my name is Madeline Carr. I'm a professor of global politics and cybersecurity at University College London, and I've been part of Petrus for many years now, working predominantly on the standards, governance, and policy dimensions of the cybersecurity of the IoT. I wanted to thank the organizers of the conference for inviting me here today, and I'd like to present some work that I'm doing with Dr. Saheli, Datta, Burton, who'll present with me. I'm going to first give a kind of general overview of what we're looking at, what we're interested in, and then Saheli will take you through the kind of nuts and bolts of the work that we're doing. So the first question, I guess, that comes about is why we're looking at the geopolitics of standards. And this is some work that I've been wanting to do for quite a while. Standards are very much political. There was, for many years they were regarded as something quite dry and technical, the domain of engineers and the technical community. But in fact, of course, they're political. They have commercial value. They shape markets. So they have this kind of economic impact. They help to define how technology develops and how it's implemented, sometimes regionally and sometimes globally. But in addition, the technology really shapes international politics. And in fact, international politics at the same time shapes how technology emerges and develops. So if we look at a current issue like 5G and the tension between the US and China, it's very difficult to extract the geopolitics and the kind of brewing tensions between those two superpowers from the very important technical decisions about how a future and very important enabling technology like 5G will be implemented and by whom it will be implemented. Those things are completely intertwined. Now, the other reason why standards are really quite interesting to study from a political perspective is because despite the power that they have, they can actually be discussed and decided in a way that's really quite lacking in transparency. And so what happens within these bodies, how it happens, who the actors are, how the processes are designed and overseen can really be quite opaque, and that's interesting for something with that level of power. Now, really, state actors are beginning to realize the significant power of standards, and we see some actors that really didn't play much of a role in the past beginning to put quite significant state resources into sending teams to these standard setting bodies and trying to shape the outcomes, and that just that fact that they're putting those kind of resources towards it tells us that these are a site of quite significant power. So within that context of thinking about how standards are impacting on international relations, how international relations are shaping standards development, we're looking at a couple of very specific issues, and one of them is the standards implications of fitness devices, which is an area that Saheli knows a lot about. So I'll hand over to her now. Saheli?
Thank you, Madeline. Before I begin, it is important to understand how fitness devices differ from medical devices. And even though both have become extremely popular in recent years and promise many benefits for users, from monitoring vital health data like insulin levels, oxygen saturation, to tracking fitness and lifestyle metrics like counting footsteps taken, calories burned, and so on, fitness devices are not medical devices. This is primarily because fitness devices do not fall under the regulatory frameworks that apply to medical devices. Instead, fitness devices are self-regulated by industry, whereby manufacturers self-assess and self-claim whether the devices does or does not have a medical purpose. which could be either diagnostic or therapeutic. Thus, a smartwatch is a fitness device, but not a medical device if its manufacturer claims all it does is, for example, reads heart rate, but without any diagnostic or therapeutic purpose. This is the case by and large in the UK, the US, and in Europe, where medicines and medical devices regulators take broadly similar self-regulatory approaches with some jurisdiction-specific nuances. Within this regulatory framework, there has been a trend to increasingly tighten the security of software functions or mobile apps with therapeutic or diagnostic medical purpose. However, this leaves the hardware element or fitness devices, which are by and large industry self-regulated. And although all relevant regulations for telecommunications equipment, for CE marking, and or general product safety regulations like the UK's General Product Safety Regulations of 2005 apply to the manufacturing of these products, these regulations have less evidentiary requirements than that required for certifying medical devices. Problematically, however, there is very little that differentiates both of these devices when it comes to the design flaws in the manufacturing that make them easier to hack and increases their vulnerability to cyber attacks. These vulnerabilities have been demonstrated by researchers in public forums time and again, as we see here, with security researchers Rios and Butts going so far as to caution on primetime CBS News US that they were yet to find a device that they've looked at that they haven't been able to hack. Yet, despite this long history of demonstrating vulnerabilities in these devices, design flaws and security vulnerabilities continue to follow the industry, as we see here. Fitness devices that may appear to have less critical implications for healthcare share the same vulnerabilities as they continue to be developed and marketed with little, if any, effort to address even basic design vulnerabilities that make them easy to hack. In the wrong hands, such vulnerabilities could compromise user security and safety. For instance, a study of the DigitSoul and Modius devices this year revealed that aside from all of the devices studied collecting and exposing personal information, physical harm could be caused by hackers by altering the temperature and electric pulse, leading to nausea and sickness in the users of these devices. Similarly, very little differentiates the communication architecture of medical devices from the less regulated connected fitness devices. Both of these have embedded sensors that read user health data and relay it remotely to health delivery organizations via mobile applications or apps. And they use existing and the same short-range communication technologies like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Zigbee, GSM, and so on. And both store vast amounts of health data in mostly shared virtual clouds. Thus, both fitness and medical devices, whether user-held or large stationary standalone medical equipment in health institutions, they all share the interconnected cyber commons where cyber threats and cyber criminals make little distinction between regulatory categories. Instead, the ever-expanding interconnectedness and the interoperability between discrete device categories amplify regulatory and oversight gaps that expose publics to layers of security vulnerabilities across device, network, and storage levels. However, as we all know, security design flaws and the challenges of interconnectedness are not unique to connected fitness and medical devices, but a concern for IoTs more generally. However, the pressures and imperatives that drive these vulnerabilities differ across sectors. In the case of fitness and medical devices, the absence of any known events of physical harm to users, such as remote alteration of dosage, and so on, has fostered a low cybersecurity risk perception of these devices, whether for fitness or for medical purposes. Regulators acknowledge this risk exists. For example, Suzanne Schwartz, the Deputy Director of the Office of Strategic Partnerships and Technology Innovation of the US FDA, said that medical devices are becoming increasingly connected, and connected devices have inherent risks which make them vulnerable to security breaches. These breaches potentially impact the safety and effectiveness of the device, and if not remedied, may lead to patient harm. In turn, this low cybersecurity risk perception further depresses investment in cybersecurity measures for secure product manufacturing, with most of what investment is made tending to prioritize the cybersecurity of medical devices in large-scale multi-patient centers, such as large hospitals and clinical settings. And this is explicitly encouraged by regulators. For example, as the FDA Commissioner, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, says, the goal is to give product developers more opportunity to address the potential for large-scale multi-patient impact that may raise patient safety concerns. This neglects the individual user and exacerbates, we argue, the low security risk perception and underinvestment in securing fitness devices. Economic and operational barriers, such as preference for patch management in comparison to the higher costs and competitive concerns around switching to secure manufacturing, also play a part. However, this may be changing with the recent EU Cybersecurity Act, establishing the EU Cybersecurity Certification Framework for manufacturers and developers of ICT products for the EU market. Lastly, the governance framework, which separates fitness from medical devices, which we've discussed earlier, have wide-ranging and profound implications for the security and safety of users. Nevertheless, for manufacturers, choosing the fitness device route instead of the medical devices certification route definitely offers the advantage of cutting down compliance cost burdens, which undoubtedly in turn makes retail prices more competitive, but also conversely appears to have so far kept the market open to low security devices that continue to be developed and marketed with little effort to address basic design vulnerabilities, such as several smartwatches, as we see here. Patch management is used by manufacturers and at times have led to public alerts, even product recalls. However, neither safety alerts nor recalls nor corrective actions, that's in the EU, have so far led to industry-wide improvements in the security and thereby safety of connected fitness or user-held medical devices. Interestingly, the security concerns of fitness devices receive little attention in comparison to concern over the accuracy, reliability, and validity of the data generated by a fitness device. As such, most standards in fitness devices area tend to focus on improving data quality, thereby seeking to improve usability of these devices for medical diagnosis or therapeutic purposes by clinicians and clinical staff, which, as we see here, have so far remained limited, if at all. In turn, these efforts to introduce so-called global standards have so far predominantly focused on data usability concerns through validation instruments such as testing and certification schemes. However, these schemes tend to raise or consolidate competitiveness of national and allied regional leaders in fitness devices, then meaningfully bringing together manufacturers across the world to tackle shared security risks of the cyber commons. This instead complicates, fragments, and slows market access for suppliers who must now not only comply with testing requirements to access markets, but must also necessarily have the capital and regulatory compliance resources to do so. For instance, consider the International Federation of Sports Medicine, FIMS in short, their open forum last November to create a quality assurance global standard for wearable devices, which provides commission testing of marketing claims and endorsement of commercial wearables that test favorably. First, the recommendation note the security issues involved, but predominantly focus on data quality, which reflect their efforts and focus to improve device usability and consequently the global uptake. Second, the expertise basis of global standards on 14 members of the New England regional chapter of the American College of Sports Medicine is challenging for its claim as a global standard, with half of its contributing members based in the US, mostly Yale University, and the other half comprising mostly of members from Europe and UK, and one member from the rest of the world. Third, FIMS itself estimates its testing for wearables to cost upwards of 300,000 US dollars. They instead suggest national core facilities as a cost-cutting measure, but provides a comparable and acceptable example of facilities in leading and highly resourced US-based academic institutions. Similarly, various other suggestions for cost-cutting, such as the experience and resources available in the highly resourced company Fitbit. Thus, for its claim as a globally applicable standard, this reliance on accessibility and affordability to substantive capital and knowledge resources that by FIMS's own admission are mostly available to highly resourced US-based entities, invariably places significant market access barriers for non-US manufacturers. Thus, on the one hand, were these suggestions for standards to become globally adopted, they would not only invariably complicate market access in favor of national competitiveness, but would thereby also further fragment a meaningful global approach to the shared cyber threats of the shared global cyber commons via endpoint risks presented through fitness devices, which remain largely unaddressed in the FIMS's global standard. Yet on the other hand, this regional focus is also unrepresentative of the trends or the emerging shape of the global connected devices market, which has a huge and growing user base beyond the US. With a wide and growing global spread and scope of diverse market leaders that share many similarities with the geopolitics of the 5G and internet landscape. In turn, this fragmentation along national and allied regional interests can be seen with various traditional and influential global standard-setting bodies which provide a venue for competing standards that in turn champion competing regional leaders. Thus, the governance and security of fitness devices and IoTs more generally is regarded by states, as we've seen here, as linked to national security, national interest, and state power, where ambitions of increased productivity and efficiency very much outweigh security concerns. And this makes it particularly susceptible to the vulnerabilities that emerge in the Internet of Things more generally and fitness devices more specifically. With that, back to you, Madeline.
Thanks, Saheli. So that's just one example of the kind of complexity of governing emerging technologies and the ways that these things play out through standards and through standard setting bodies. It's something that we really feel needs a lot more attention and a lot more critical analysis. And that's what we'll be doing over the next 18 months. We'd be really interested to talk to any of you who have an interest in that area, particularly with regard to the industrial IoT. So we'll be shifting our attention to that now. So more of those kind of technologies that we see implemented in industrial control systems and those kind of settings. But please, do get in touch if you have an interest, and we'll look forward to taking some questions. Thank you.